All right, we're going to do 6.3 binomial radical expressions. So hopefully you've had a chance to do the warm-up problems. If not, if you have, check them. If not, pause it, see if you can come up with them, and then we're going to jump down to the new examples. So notice that we can add the numbers in front of the radical to simplify them. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on right here. All right, so this first one, the square root of 2 plus 3 times the square root of 2, that is like a 1 in front of it. So now we can pull out the 1 plus 3, and we're left with the radical of 2. So it'd be 4 times the square root of 2. Next one is the cubed root of 7, so it'd be a 1 out in front again. So it's like a 1 minus 5 times the cubed root of 7. So it's just negative 4 times the cubed root of 7. Next one, subtract the numbers out in front. 3 minus 2 is 1 times the square root of 5x, which is just the square root of 5x. Okay, next one, you cannot simplify because they do not have the same radicand. They have the same index, and they have the same index, but not the same number under the square root. So we cannot simplify that one. All right, the next one, we've got the square root and the same radicand. So we can add the stuff out in front, 3x and 4x. Still left with times the square root of xy. So it's going to be 7x times the square root of xy. Last one, again, can't simplify because you have the cubed root and the square root. So since they're not both the cubed root, you cannot simplify them. If there is no number, it's the square root. All right, on to adding and subtracting after simplifying. So simplify them first. So this first one should be review. We did one like this earlier, a couple chapters ago. So we can break it up, square root of 4 and square root of 3. 75, we can break it up into square root of 25 and square root of 3, and minus square root of 3. So we have 2 times the square root of 3, and 5 times the square root of 3. And don't forget, if there's no number there, it's like a 1. So minus 1 times the square root of 3. So now just add the numbers out in front. 2 plus 5, 7, minus 1. So we have 6 times the square root of 3. Okay, next one, cubed roots. So think of your cubed roots. 2 cubed is 8. 3 cubed is 27. 4 cubed would be 64. 5 cubed would be 125, and so on. So we can break up the cubed root of 250 into 125 and 2. 54 into 27 and 2. 16 into cubed root of 8 and the cubed root of 2. So we end up getting cubed root of 125 is 5 times the cubed root of 2 plus 3 times the cubed root of 2 minus 2 times the cubed root of 2. And now just simplify. So we've got a 5 plus 3 minus 2. So we've got an 8 minus 2, 6 times the cubed root of 2. All right, last one, back to square roots here. So we can break that apart to square root of 4 and 7. You got 25 and 7 and 9 and 7. So 2 times the square root of 7 minus 5 times the square root of 7 plus 3 times the square root of 7. So take those numbers out in front. So we've got a 2 minus 5 plus 3. 2 minus 5, negative 3 plus 3 would end up giving you 0. 0 times anything is just 0. All right, next page. Now we're on to multiplying binomial radical expressions. All right, so we're going to FOIL. So we've got first, 3 times 2 is 6. Outside, 3 times 4 times the square root of 5. Inside, 2 times 2 times the square root of 5. And last, 2 times the square root of 5 plus 4 times the square root of 5. Not plus 4. Should be a times. times 4 square root of 5. All right, so we go 6 plus 12 times the square root of 5 plus 4 times the square root of 5. Now these, to do these, you've got to multiply the 2 and the 4 first, 8, and then square root of 5 times square root of 5 is just a 5. So then that will give us 40. So we can add that to the 6, so we get 46. And then we can take the 12 and the 4 to get 8. And that's all you can do to simplify that one. All right, next one. Again, we're just foiling. So we get first 15 outside, 3 times the square root of 7 inside, 5 times the square root of 7. Last, square root of 7 times square root of 7 is just 7. So start simplifying here. 15 minus 7 would be 8. And then we can go 3 minus 5 would be negative 2 times the radical of 7. All right, next one, you can multiply by the conjugate. I'm going to skip these two and jump down to the last two because when we rationalize the denominator, we need to multiply by the conjugate. So I guess I can show you what the conjugate is, but actually to do the multiplying, we'll do it down below. So if you want to multiply by the conjugate, you're going to just multiply it by the same thing except for the sign in between is different. So we got a minus, we're going to multiply it by the same thing but with a plus. This one was a plus, so we're going to multiply it by the same thing but a minus. Now you see that the square root of 8 and the square root of 12 could have been simplified before you multiply. It's actually easier just to leave it as it is, multiply it, and then simplify it. Alright, so let's try a couple of these here. So we can take this times the square root of 5 plus the square root of 2, the conjugate. So if you have the sum of something with a radical in the denominator, you want to multiply by the conjugate. Okay, so on the top, if we distribute that 3 through, we're going to get 3 times the square root of 2 and 5. So 2 and 5 were both under the radical, so leave them both under the radical. Okay, and then we do the 3 times the 2, 3 square root of 2 times the square root of 2. So we get plus 3 times the square root of 2 and another 2 under the radical. So you can simplify that first. I'm just going to jump down and do the denominator here. Alright, so when you multiply by the conjugate, you're just going to have the first 5 and actually the outside, because what happens with the inside? Square root of 5 times square root of 2 would be square root of 10. So that would be outside. Inside, square root of 2 times square root of 5 minus square root of 10. And then last, minus square root of 2 times 2. Okay, so you end up getting those square root of 10s to cancel, because you had one plus and one minus. Alright, so let's simplify it from the top here. So we had the 3 times the square root of 10 plus, and then square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just 2. So I'm going to go 3 times 2 was 6. All over, and then again, square root of 2 times 2 is just 2 again. So we have 5 minus 2. So we get 3 times square root of 10 plus 6 all over 3. So let's just take a 3 out of everything. And then I'm going to write that 6 first. So I'm going to rewrite it as 2 plus square root of 10. And that's it. Over 1. Or just leave it. Alright, next one. So the conjugate on this one of the denominator would be square root of 3 plus the square root of 5. Alright, so on the top you can distribute there. So you end up getting 2 times the square root of 21 plus 2 times the square root of 35 by multiplying the square root of 7 times each of those. Okay, now if you look back at the one we just did, you might notice that when you multiply by the conjugate, let's see. You started with 5 and 2. We ended up getting 5 and 2. Okay? So it's always going to be that first one squared minus the last one squared. So if you want to use that shortcut, you can use the first one squared here, which is the square root of 3. So that's just going to be 3 minus the last one squared, 5. Alright, so to simplify this, we can't do too much here. We can't simplify the top at all. Just simplify the bottom. I guess then we'll be able to take a 2 out of everything. Over negative 2. So divide everything by negative 2. So you get negative square root of 21 minus square root of 35. Alright, last one. Works the same way, it just looks a little bit different here. We're going to take it times 3 plus the square root of 6. So distribute the 4x, so we get 12x plus 4x times the square root of 6. Denominator, it's just going to be the first one squared minus the last one squared. Okay, so again, not too much to simplify there. I guess that's it. Just simplify the denominator. Alright, so your assignment for tomorrow is at the bottom there. So 6.3, page 378, 10 through 32 evens, 33 through 36.